to a close. Where are we? We'll talk about that when Freedom returns at 5.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. And so this Honduran 2-year-old girl, Yanela Hernandez.
Oh, yeah, she's everywhere. She's like the face of this event or whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
Crisis, whatever.
D.C. press corps outlets and their allied handmaidens in places like Chicago picked up on this girl who was crying, made her the face of the family separation issue.
Right. They actually have her on the cover of Time magazine. They photoshopped President Trump in looking down at her with "Welcome to America."
Mm-hmm. Right, imposing, like, "Welcome to America."
Yes.
You're not coming in. She's crying. Scott Stantis, a sentimentalist cartoonist for the Tribune, picked up on this. Everybody was reporting this story and reporting it inaccurately. The father of the 2-year-old child said that she was never separated from her mom. His daughter was never separated from her mother.
Oh, really?
Never separated.
But that doesn't fit the narrative. I mean, the first time I saw this video, she was with her mom and she just started crying because her mom was being questioned. But also, she's 2. And 2-year-olds cry a lot when they're hungry or tired and look like she had just had a long journey.
The father, Dennis, said his wife and daughter were never separated by Border Control agents and remain together. His wife previously mentioned her wish to go to the United States for a better future, but did not tell him or any of their family members that she was planning to make the trek. She paid a coyote $6,000 to help her and the daughter get across the border. I didn't support it. I asked her why. Why would she want to put our little girl through that? But it was her decision at the end of the day, said Dennis, the father/husband. He said his wife wanted to experience the American dream, hoped to find a good job in the States. Whereas he works as a captain at a port on the coast of Puerto Cortes, explaining things at home were fine but not great, and his wife was seeking political asylum, so she made the decision to make the 1,800-mile journey with her 2-year-old daughter on June 3rd, and with the help of a coyote, and he hadn't heard from her since. But all that happened was she put the child down,
Right.
The child started crying, a Getty photographer snapped the picture, and then they built the narrative around it.
I mean, she was just, if you see the whole video in its entirety, you can clearly see it was taken out of context.
I'll look forward to all of those corrections being issued.
Oh, right.
For more on this topic, writ large, we're pleased to be joined by Steve Cortes, CNN political commentator and Trump Hispanic Advisory Council member. And Steve got in a bit of a sticky wicket on CNN this week because he used language that is not officially sanctioned by CNN, calling the people trying to get into this country illegally invaders, not immigrants. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. Thanks for having me.
So this incendiary language you're using, you're upsetting your fellow panelists at CNN. Explain yourself.
You know, I did. Just to clarify, though, I did put out a tweet the next day, and I actually said I wished I hadn't used that word.
Why?
I mean, I think it's technically true, but I don't want to fall into the same trap that the left constantly uses against us. I don't want to succumb to their incendiary language where they always use the most hyperbolic terms possible, in this case, constantly comparing us to Nazis, which is just utterly insulting, illogical, on every level wrong. And I don't want to even go a little bit down that path. So I do take back the term invader, but nonetheless, I'm not softening on policy. I still think anyone who trespasses over our sovereign border without permission needs to be prosecuted. And if they happen to have a child in tow with them, that's a tragedy for the child, and the child's a victim of their parents' misbehavior, or a lot of times it's not the parent, but the adult's misbehavior, because half the time we don't know who these people are. So I haven't softened at all on my stance, and certainly on the policy, but I'm going to try to use more appropriate words because, again, I don't want to do what General Hayden, former head of the CIA, did when he compared this to Auschwitz.
No, you
Donnie
shouldn't
Deutsch
do that.
Right. Donnie Deutsch just this morning on MSNBC said anyone who supports this policy is effectively a Nazi guard. He said that on Morning Joe. So their language is so over the top that I don't even want to get within the arena of that. So I'll take back invaders, but I stand firm on the policy of We need zero tolerance border control.
Well, speaking of taking back, were you taken back by President Trump's rare reversal on this executive order that he signed?
I was very taken back, quite frankly, and I said so on air. I don't often criticize the president, but I thought that was, I thought the message he sent was, if you call me Hitler 5,000 times, I might cave, right? Or if you show some disturbing pictures. And by the way, I'm so glad that you talked about the truth of that crying toddler. By the way, listen, I've got 4 kids. If we were to base policy on kids crying, even family policy, that would be a mistake, much less national policy. Now, look, are there some kids down there who are having a tough time? I'm sure, and I empathize tremendously. They are victims. They didn't choose to do this. Just as any criminal in the United States who's separated from their child probably is causing anguish for the child. But that doesn't mean the cop who arrested them is the perpetrator. It doesn't mean President Trump is the perpetrator. It means their parents who decided willfully to break the law. They are the ones who are mistreating those children. And look, I really believe that the president, I think, temporarily succumbed to weakness there. I really do. However, on the other side, this morning he's putting out some pretty tough tweets. And if anything, he seems to be moving back to the right of telling the Congress, for instance, in his tweet this morning, don't bother. And I think what he means by that is, I'm not going to sign some sort of milquetoast, watered down Paul Ryan amnesty bill. And I think maybe he's finding his spine again. And hopefully some people like me who were disappointed with him and told him so on air and otherwise after that executive order, maybe we reaffirmed his strength on this issue.
Do you think that's a little bit of an effort to apply some reverse psychology to Senate Democrats in particular if the Paul Ryan bill were to make it out of the House next week and be taken up by the Senate? The president previously said he would sign either bill, the Ryan bill or the Goodlatte bill. The Goodlatte bill loses yesterday, goes down, doesn't pass. But maybe trying to get either to just keep Democrats in that crucible. If you say you want a solution writ large, well, here's a solution, including a DACA fix, including a family separation fix. And if you can get it over to the Senate, I'll continue to be open-minded about signing it if it gets to my desk. And if it doesn't get to my desk, it highlights Democrats' complete uninterest in actually addressing immigration in a material way.
Right. No, and that could well be his strategy there. And by the way, that is just the reality of the situation. The president came a long way for a man who campaigned on no DACA, right? He promised to end DACA on day one of his presidency, which, by the way, I don't agree with him on that point. I'm pro-DACA. But the point is he went from saying no DACA day one, it's done, all the way over to, extending it as president and then offering, I think, a really, really generous solution. I mean, not only is he offering DACA, he's offering almost 3 times the number of people that signed up for it. About 750,000 or so signed up. He's offering all the way to 2 million who we believe are eligible for it. So he went, I think, above and beyond expectations, really got a lot of people in his base pretty angry, frankly, but said, I'm willing to make this amnesty, and there's no other word for it, it's an amnesty. I'm willing to make this amnesty if we get the border wall, restrictions on chain migration, and the visa lottery, and now we're also thrown into that soup, clarifying this issue of separating families. So to me, he bent over backwards, and the Democrats still said, we're not coming to the table. We're not playing ball. And what does that tell me? They want an issue. They don't want a solution. They want to show crying babies in November because they think it'll allow them to take the House.
So they're pushing the vote on this, moderate immigration plan to next week. But yesterday, no Democrats even voted. They didn't. I mean, it's like they're ignoring its existence. Right.
No, there's a standoff. I mean, and I think it's ridiculous. Again, the Democrats want an issue. Let's just be honest here, too, I think, about immigration. I give President Trump so much credit for taking this issue head on because for decades, Republicans sort of talked tough on controlling the border and illegal immigration, but they never acted. And I think the reason they didn't is because their corporate clients, their crony capitalist clients, frankly, loved the constant flow of cheap labor to this country. So that's the fault sort of on the right. And then on the left, all they saw is new voters, right, is people who will come here, some of whom will illegally vote, but they'll have children who will be American citizens who will vote. And that's all they saw. Was we want to grow the Democratic Latino base in places like Texas and California. And so I think both sides, frankly, neglected the interests of the American worker and instead pursued their very narrow parochial political interests. Trump came in and smashed that and just said, you're all wrong. The swamp has this wrong. And the American people don't want uncontrolled illegal immigration because it's a risk to national security, and it's most of all for most of them, it's a risk to economic security. And so I give him credit for blowing that system up. But it's not easy to go in there and blow it up. And so that's what we're seeing now is, a lot of fits and starts on the road to I think, sanity of controlling illegal immigration.
You're a bit of a raconteur, a fashion plate. So I wonder if you could comment on the greater fashion emergency yesterday. Was it Wendell Carter Jr.'s Gucci scarf or Melania's I really don't care, do you coat?
Right. Well, I really don't know what the message was with the coat. What do you think, Dan?
I think it was scrunched up so much. I mean, you're asking Dan, but I'm inserting myself.
Yeah,
I think it's
please.
because I'm the woman here. I think it was scrunched up so much you couldn't read what it said. So the media had to find a copy of what that jacket was to see what it said.
Right.
And I was shocked.
I think that
the whole world's watching. She can wear anything. She's a billionaire fashion model. She chooses last year's Zara, which is a $39 jacket.
It is still au courant, but I think what you're missing, I think, both of them are sort of very good at manipulating the media. I think they're provocateurs. Her, obviously, much more subtle than President Trump. And I think they like to put things out there that leave people discussing them, trying to interpret them,
Sure.
seeing, sort of inscrutably trying to, divine meaning from every move or every article of clothing that is offered for public consumption. And I think you could interpret it a lot of different ways, and I think they like that.
Right. No, listen, that's true. And I'll tell you one thing that Trump has certainly done since he ran for office, and certainly now as president, is he always figures out ways, and I think sometimes very purposefully so, to absolutely dominate the conversation. I mean, if you watch the cable news channels, 95% of the day is directly Trump related, and he wants it that way, I think. If he sucks up all the oxygen in the room, that's a good thing for Trump. And in general, it has worked for him. There's times when it doesn't, but in general. I do think, by the way, too, on the substance of it, I'm very glad that she went down there because there are kids suffering. And so I think it was the right human thing to do. I also think it was smart politically. We've got a lot of bad pictures that people show, some of which are dishonest, like that Time cover. But there are some troubling pictures. Let's show a great picture, of our beautiful First Lady, mother, going down there and showing compassion. I think the president himself should go, and I've told the White House that. I think he should go and tour one of these camps and just make sure, put his own eyes on it and see that kids are being well treated. Because, again, I think it's the right human thing to do, but also the optics and the politics matter. But, again, I can't emphasize enough, these kids, if there are kids who are in traumatic experiences, it's because of what their parents did, not because of what President Trump did or ICE or Border Patrol.
He is Steve Cortes, CNN political commentator and member of Trump's Hispanic Advisory Council. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
You bet. Have a great day.
He joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.